Hi Sarah, how you going?
Yeah, good, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. So I just wanted to jump straight into our session, okay? So in the last couple of sessions that we've had, we were talking about your fielding and, because you said that you felt like you were losing a bit of focus and stuff. How do you think that's been going?
Yeah, I think it's going okay now. Like, I'm shifting my focus back, but it's still kind of a struggle.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about today. What sort of things do you want to accomplish in today's session?
Well, this is why I brought my coach here, because I don't really know. I think my bowling's doing okay. I'm really focusing on my technique, but my coach has other thoughts.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on her bowling?
So the main thing, her main role in the team is to bowl, of course. So,
Sure.
And I've seen that her overall performance in her bowling has been going down.
Okay.
So she's struggling to really, bowl consistently, align in length, stuff like that. And so she's leaking a few more runs than what I would like.
Sure.
So if you can just give any sort of, analysis or any things that can help in training that we can use to just sort of clear that up,
Okay.
that would be amazing.
Yeah, cool. So Sarah, why do you think maybe your coach has thought that your bowling is slipping when you think it's been better?
I think I use a lot more of my technique now. So I'm focusing on where the hand goes, how far it goes over, my run up. So I'm just using a lot more of that kind of focus.
Okay, sure. Okay, so based on what you're sort of saying to me, I would probably say that I think you could be hyper-focusing.
Okay, so far what we've established through the analysis of Sarah's bowling is that she's started to hyper-focus through her movement. And we think that this probably comes back to issues in concentration with her fielding. So prior to all of this happening, she was doing quite well in her bowling, but then suddenly she felt like she was losing concentration in her fielding, even though her fielding performance was still quite optimal. But because of all of this, I think she lost a bit of faith in her ability and has now started hyper-focusing on her bowling. And as a result, she actually thinks that her bowling is still going quite well, but her coach has reported that her bowling performance has actually gone down a little bit. So we sort of have to figure out why she's hyper-focusing and return back to this equilibrium where the emphasis is on the outcome of the skill performance. So what she's been doing is she's been focusing on each little technique cue of the skill instead of just focusing on the execution. But we know that because she is an elite athlete, she bowls at quite an elite level, she doesn't need to be thinking sort of like a novice with these individual attentional focuses on each point of the skill. She just needs to think about what she wants to achieve. And we know that this is called over-analyzing body mechanics. So this is where inappropriate attention is focused too much on body mechanics and movement. So instead of thinking about where the ball is going, she's thinking about how to throw the ball. And from prior research, we know that it's not possible to think through these 8 technique cues in the split seconds that it takes to execute the skill and still perform at the elite level that she wants to perform at. So we need to recognize the overlearned skills theory. So she needs to have trust and faith in her ability to complete the movement on autopilot. She knows that she can bowl and she knows that she can bowl well. So the skill should be automatic with minimal thinking. So as stated by the Foundations of Sport and Exercise Psychology textbook, once a skill is learned well, an overemphasis on body mechanics is detrimental to performance. So if Sarah was to continue focusing on too much on skill execution, she might fall victim to what is known as the conscious processing hypothesis. So this is when skilled performers focus too much of their conscious attention on their task, and this can actually lead to them choking or failing to execute the skill. So basically what that all sums up to mean is that we need to find ways for Sarah to relax through her movement, have faith in her ability and trust that she can execute the skill without thinking about each little stage of it.
Okay, so let's talk about ways that we can actually rein in your focus and concentrate on the outcome as opposed to the execution, okay? So we're going to focus on some self-talk, and we're going to use some cues. You can decide together. And we're just going to simplify your thought process during your bowling.
Okay.
So can you tell me what cues you're using at the moment whilst you're bowling?
Yeah. All right. So I'm thinking about the grip of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using the straight arm, thinking about how my shoulder comes over and where I plant my foot.
Okay. So look, we know that you're really good at what you do. Okay, you're an elite level bowler or cricket player, so you know what you're doing. So I think that maybe with this hyper focusing, we're focusing too much on the movement. So let's start moving away from the movements that you're doing.
Okay.
And let's focus on where the ball is going as opposed to how the ball is being thrown.
Yep. So the
Okay.
outcome rather than the process of what's going on.
Yeah. So here are some examples that I have of some self-talk cues, and I'm going to get you to go through these ones and use them in your next training session, and then together work out which 2 or 3 are going to be the best ones for you.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. So if you guys just want to have a look at those ones, and
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So I like how you set each one out that it's not too long, and yeah, we'll try and
we'll give it a
implement
crack.
it in training and see if it works and if she can improve her performance with her bowling.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome. And we'll see you
Thanks.
guys next time.
So, as we've discussed before, at Sarah's level, she should be able to bowl with complete autonomy and should not be compartmentalising the small movements like you do when you're learning a new skill. We know a reason for athletes we know that a potential reason for athletes developing this overthinking during an autonomous movement can be due to experiencing some losses or some mistakes, causing a bit of self-doubt. It could be assumed that Sarah herself has had a few out-of-character bowls or game situations that have shook her confidence within herself and have led to this over-analysing. As far as an intervention, ideally we would be applying this not only to in-training situations but also external situations. Outside of training, we would probably focus more on a journaling and mindfulness practice, bringing her awareness to what is causing this overthinking to occur. The base construct of mindfulness is to embrace your thoughts instead of ignoring them. We do believe that those interventions would not only be applicable to helping Sarah become aware of where her attention is trailing off during her bowling and falling into the hyper-focusing, but will also be able to come fluent in creating awareness when she can feel herself zoning out while she's out in the field, and then being able to bring that attention back when it is needed because she's aware of it. For the purpose of this group project, however, we will be focusing mainly on an intervention to be used within training, focusing on her bowling performance. We have decided to encourage a shift in self-talk that she's using during bowling. In terms of Fitz and Prosner's book, Human Performance of 1967, they describe that there are 3 stages of learning. They advise that there is a cognitive, associative, and autonomous stage to learning. During that cognitive stage, there is a lot of attention to little minor movements within those larger movements, and focusing on what small changes can do to the outcome of that major movement. That uses a lot of working memory while you are learning new skills, which is why you tend to not have the attentional capacity to focus on anything else other than just that skill while you are learning. However, once the skill has progressed all the way to the autonomous stage, the movement itself is largely automatic. You shouldn't be thinking of how you are doing that movement. However, it frees up, because it's not using your working memory, it frees up the ability to then be able to focus more on tactics, speed, acceleration, range of motion, that body position, etc. As we have established, that Sarah's movement should be in the autonomous stage. However, it has seemed to have backpedaled to somewhat of a novice player, that cognitive stage, with analysing every single movement. As we've established earlier, Sarah's movements should be autonomous, however, have seemed to have backpedaled into that cognitive stage of a novice player, which is very clearly can be reflective of her confidence in her abilities to do that. If she's not feeling like she's autonomous in it, she's not going to be acting as such. In a study titled Countering the Consequences of Ego Depletion, the Effects of Self-Talk on Selective Attention, they found that when self-talk was used for participants with an ego depletion, they had a greater accuracy, faster reaction times for visual and auditory tests. They also stated that self-talk can be effective in self-regulating and enhancing your self-attention. Because we already have a claim that there is a possible self-doubt reason to Sarah's beginning of over-analysing. We do believe that this self-talk will be beneficial during her bowling. Changing her self-talk from being so many specific little movements throughout the bowl, we're wanting to replace those with phrases such as at the wicket, bowl through, breathe, swing, relax, you've got this. These sorts of phrases will help turn Sarah's attention away from that hyper-focusing, almost forgetting about that hyper-focusing. Will centre it and simplify it, leaving the actual movement done autonomously like it should be, and freeing up her attention capacity to be honing in on those elite level variables such as speed and accuracy and tactics of the game. I think it would be important to be using 2 to 3 go-to phrases that she'll be able to use in different situations. For example, we can have motivational cues that can be used for when she's starting to self-doubt and is easily going to fall back into that trap of overanalyzing. That would be things such as relax, you've got this. There can be another focus reflecting on the physical environment, so cues that are actually relevant to the physical movement that she's doing in the game situation that she's in at that moment. So that would be things like bowl through, at the wicket, so maintain her focus.
I feel like that was a really good training session. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you definitely improved towards the end of the training session.
Yep.
At the start, you were, I think, a little bit unsure about what to actually do. But yeah, I think really that the psychologist helped us just focus more on the outcome. And definitely towards the end of the session, I think you definitely got grips of what to actually do before you actually start bowling. I would think, which one do you think helped the best, so that we can use it in the game and just keep that going?
Yeah, look, I tried a few. I tried one about the arm movement. I tried one about the run-up. But I think the one that worked the best was the wicket one. So just aiming for the outcome of the wickets was my best one.
Beautiful. So we'll try and, before the game, we'll definitely go through the same script.
Yeah.
And so that when you're bowling, you're just focusing on that specific one and not focusing on the other interventions, because sometimes we can get lost in doing too much. If we just focus on the one outcome, it'd probably be best for you.
So how do you think Sarah went during training?
Yeah, I think she's definitely improving. I can see that the intervention you gave with the script is definitely helping. She's definitely more focusing on the outcome rather than, very technical. My only concern would be, is this going to work? Can we introduce this in the game as well? Would it definitely help? Or?
Yeah, so what I'll get you to do is just make sure that before the game she actually goes through the script with you, and then that way she's got it with her.
Cool.
And then during the game, if she gets to a point where she thinks she might need to, at least she's got it in the back of her mind and she can go through it by herself as well.
Awesome.
If you do that, then definitely it will. What you've seen in training will carry over into the games as well.
Awesome, yeah. Luckily we're on off season now, so she can definitely practice it in.
Sure.
So then when we get to the actual season, we can actually work on it and get it that it's second nature. So